Thanks for coming to another live. And today we're going to talk about human design, specifically projectors. Let's see if there's anybody here right now. I don't see anybody popped in just yet, but that's okay. So I'm going to actually get Jen to introduce herself first, and then I'll maybe talk a little bit about how we know each other. But Jen, if you want to go ahead with introduction.
Sure. My name is Jennifer. I'm with My Holistic Self, and I'm a registered psychotherapist, a Canadian certified counselor, intuitive life coach, and yeah, I do stuff, as we say on Twillo.
Yes, exactly. Lots and lots of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we know each other. We've met each other in person. We both live in the Ottawa area. I actually met you through tennis, so at Twillo Lifestyle. I know each other through her. And we actually did a retreat together too
Yes.
last year.
Cool.
So that was
On
a lot of
design
fun.
stuff is part of it, actually.
Yes, actually, yeah. That was my first kind of big introduction to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I actually was at that retreat. It was so nice.
Yes.
So today we're going to work off of your workbook. So you just kind of released it or launched your workbook, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is so exciting.
Yes. A labor of love.
Yes, yeah. It's such a nice workbook. I'll flip through it here really quickly for everybody. But I did put a link to the workbook if you're interested in the description below. So you can go and check that out. But it kind of goes through all of kind of the general basics, I guess, of human design. I know there's some other books you can buy that has more information, but there's some great great diagrams in here. There's also where you can fill in your own human design chart. So like I colored in mine because of course I have a coloring book. I got to color it in. And then there is also some kind of like coloring pages and stuff too, right? Like you have a page that you can color in there, which I absolutely love. Oh, I see somebody's popped in. Oh, hi, Gerald. Gerald popped in. He says, my internet connection is terrible, so I'll have to watch the playback. All right.
Hoping that the internet connection stays here with the storm and everything.
Yeah, I know, me too. Oh, and Moira's here as well. Hi, Moira.
Hello,
she's also a local lady. She's in the
awesome.
as well. Thanks for popping in, everybody.
Awesome.
So yeah, so we're gonna kind of use this as our a little bit of a guide tonight, but we'll see, I guess, where it takes us.
Yeah. Well, and for me, but learning human design and kind of deep diving into so much. I'm a 1-3 profile, so I like to deep dive and then I need to experiment with it, right? And I have to kind of play with the information and see what resonates for me, and then I can deep dive some more. And so something like a coloring book is such a perfect piece for that, because now there's things that I can color, so I can think about it as I'm coloring. There's journal prompts to kind of get you to think about how this applies for you and what it feels like, kind of living that piece of the experiment, as they say. And so it really it's about bringing the right brain and left brain together, and really allowing us to not just read about something, but actually integrate that into our experience, go off and work with it and all, and then come back and contemplate, like, how did that go? What was that like?
Well, yeah. Well, and actually I was just going to check my chart because I think I'm also a 1-3. Yes, I am. I believe so. That's interesting. And actually we're going to go a bit more in depth a little bit later on, I guess, on because I guess there's probably more than one type of projector based on everything in your charts, but
there's so much that goes into what what our design is. And so the aura types are just one little piece of what that is.
Well, how about, why don't we talk about what is human design if people don't know, and what is a body graph, which is that picture I kind of showed you. Just maybe a little brief overview. If people are more interested in this, wanting to learn a little bit more, Jen's website is linked below, has a bunch of information. There's some videos there that you can watch where they've been going over each individual section piece by piece. So you can definitely.
Yeah. So Gerald, if he's still on, but we do the sorry, it seems like it's freezing a little bit, and I'm sure that's
I think it's both of our internets. But you're good.
Yeah. There's the playlist from our talk, because we've been kind of going through human design as an overview and kind of going through each piece bit by bit, and it's wonderful, right? Because I think as we first started and jumped in, there was so much. And, being able to really kind of slow that down and say, okay, you know what? We've committed to this. We're just going to go through it bit by bit for as long as it takes, because it's a lot, right? And it's a lot to process and to bring in. So, okay. So for those who are not familiar with human design, what on earth are we talking about?
Yeah.
So human design is really cool because it's a synthesis of so many different things, right? So we've got spiritual stuff, we've got the mystical kind of traditions that are brought in. There's some science behind all of this. And so it's really cool because we bring in, actually, I don't have it on here. Let me pull out. I think it's in this one. Maybe not. Maybe it's in this one. I have so many things here, guys. I'm sorry. I should be better prepped.
I love it. All the diagrams.
Okay, so we've got the mandala, right? And so what's really neat is that we've got the I Ching all the way around. So the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching is all a part of it. And those are going to be all of our gates, right? And so when we talk about transits and stuff like that, that's where we're at. And then all of the numbers that go along with them are all there. And then you've got all of the signs that they're in. So there's astrology in here too, right? And then we move in further and we've got the body graph here. And the body graph is similar to the tree of life. So now we've got the I Ching, we've got astrology, we've got the Kabbalah. We bring in some of the quantum physics, human genetics. Like there's a lot in this.
As Gerald said, ooh, charts.
And it's amazing because every single person is unique in their design, right? And so, we can say, okay, all you projectors, because that's our topic for today. But then if you think about it, okay, you're a projector, I'm a projector, Gerald's a projector, and we all have certain things that are similar, but we're all so different.
Right. Yeah. And that's the big thing I think that's shocked me, like going through it, is just looking at my chart and then like even just family, like looking at their at how they're so much different.
Yeah. Well, and that's the cool thing. So in the back of the book, there's extra charts so that you can put your family members in there as well, family, friends, people who you want to understand your dynamics with and things like that. And so I don't really get into any connection charts in this book, but being able to look at a chart and look at the connections that we have, wow, this person, we have some nice companion gates here, and maybe this is some like magnetic kind of connections that we're having with the electromagnetic gates, and oh look, like this is where there's a dominance gate, and all right, there's some friction in this, and just kind of noticing what other people bring to the table and what they trigger in us and all of that. Looking at even our shadow graph, which is a whole other chart, which we don't get into in this. This is getting into some of the deeper stuff, but it allows for us to really gain another understanding of what's going on for us so that we can, explore it and go, oh, look at that pattern. Yeah, that's in my chart. Holy moly. Like, it's incredible that that can be seen in my chart. Cool. So I don't have to beat myself up about this. I don't have to continue to berate myself. I can actually go, oh, this is this is a part of me, and I can understand it now, and I can recognize why it's there. And now it's just the mechanic, right? Like human design talks so much about it's our mechanics, right? It's about, the way that we're wired for this lifetime.
And I remember that you mentioned, I think we were talking about like one of my gates at one time, and you were like, like the two gates that kind of connect the two for me that are defined. And you were like, it's, I actually have it written above on my calendar, but it says I have and I remember. And like as soon as you said that, it was just like my life makes sense. It was like the angels and like the sunbeams came down. It was just like everything makes so much sense now. Yeah, it's and honestly, yeah, I love that I can go back to it and refer to it and be like, why am I, acting this way, or why am I viewing this from this point of view? And like nobody else sees it like this. And it's like, oh, it's because it's in that, it's in that chart. It's just in the way that I'm, made.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, so I have permission to be uniquely myself.
Right.
What?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So people are wondering what the body graph is. It's that image that you were showing in the middle of your chart there. I think there's
the body graph here. Yeah, this kind of part, right, is considered the body graph. And so it has the 9 centers and the 64 gates, and then all of the channels that connect. And so the body graph, being able to look at a body graph, it tells you so much about a person and about, what might be going on for them. And the body graph, what's defined and what is open or undefined, determines, our type and our authority and so much more. So it's really neat to see, somebody might have a chart where like almost everything is defined, and then there's reflectors who have no centers defined and everything in between, right?
Like me with my 2.
Right. Well, and that's it. So you look at a body graph like yours, and you have one channel, right? That defines you, and everything else is really open. Right. And so that's a beautiful thing to look at and to know, because now you recognize kind of what is consistent within you, but also what kind of not self themes can show up there. But then you also look at everything that's open and how wonderful that is, because all of that openness, like Ra talks about, Ra is the channel that this came to. From the voice. And so Ra talks about this idea that, our defined gates are the students and our defined channels are Jen, centers are the students, and the open and undefined centers are the teachers. Right. And so because we have so much openness to conditioning and potential wounding, they're also parts where we have great wisdom, right? And so to be able to recognize, what comes in for us, what we filter, what in the shadow chart, what has our greatest conditioning pieces, and what, as they say, the trigger points.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. As we begin to understand those, we hold space for being able to work through them. And then they become, points of great wisdom.
Yeah.
Right. And so people who are open or undefined have the ability to really know if something is good or not, if something is healthy or not, if something is correct or not, if it's inspiring or not, depending on the center. And that's such a beautiful thing, right?
So Moira was asking, is the chart determined by birth date, like astrology?
Yes.
And yes, it is.
Yes. So we use the birth date, time, and location, just like we would for an astrology chart. And as we learned,
always laugh at that.
Yes, the time matters. There are some parts where you will look at it and all day, there's very little change. There's still significant change when it comes to like the personal health system and all of that, but the overall chart sometimes doesn't. But then there are other times where the chart can actually go through multiple types or types throughout a day. And
as we discovered with me.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's a good transition to the next question, or like the next topic. I thought we could just do a brief kind of overview of like, there's four different main types.
There's four main types. Sometimes people will put manifesting generators in their own type, but they're not. They're generators that have some manifesting energy, but they're still generators.
And then manifesting generators, like I know Tanis is considered a manifesting generator.
Yeah. So if we were to look at here, I'm going to actually open it up to show you guys a picture if I can. And then what we'll do, because this is a really cool image, and this is from the image that I put in here actually comes from, and Gerald and I have shown this book before. So the definitive book on human design. So if you just want to deep dive into this stuff, this is a good place to start. But if you want to just do some exploration with your own chart and everything else, then the coloring book is definitely an option. So the image that I'm talking about is this right here. And so it shows the different.
Let me see if I can make you bigger here.
There we go. Yeah, so you can see the aura types. I don't know if I'm mirrored or not, or how it is, but hopefully it's correct on your end.
Manifester. Yeah, the manifester is towards the spine, if that helps you.
Yeah. I just didn't know if on your guys if it was backwards or not. On mine, it's reversed.
No, you're good. No, it's good.
Okay, so we've got manifestors, projectors, and generators, and reflectors. Right. And so when we look at the different aura types, you can see they actually show up different in the way that they're presented here. Right. So when we look at it, the energy for each is different. And so when we recognize kind of what that means, somebody will show up and, maybe they're really intense, or we really love that attention, and we want just their attention. That may be a projector, right? Whereas, we're in somebody's energy and it just envelops us, right? And it's like, oh, this is great. And it's like, the more the merrier. They're the generator energy, right?
Yeah.
Manifestor energy is a bit more repelling in the sense that they have an energy that allows them to just go. Right. And it's like everybody else can get out of the way because I'm just going to plow on ahead. And so there is this component of, when a manifestor walks into the room, everybody kind of goes, "Ooh, what are they going to do?" Right. And then the reflector energy, it's considered to be, sampling because it's going to reflect back. So it's constantly feeling into the environment and noticing kind of what's happening to determine if it's okay or not. And then reflecting that, back to whoever they're with or whatever the environment is. So it's all
just kind of like blows your mind.
Yeah,
so also interesting.
It's fascinating, and it's really neat too, because when you see the dynamic and then you're in a space, I'm an observer, not observed. So when you're in the space, I love to watch and I love to see what's happening, and then to have kind of things, pulled. And so, I'll sit and watch a dynamic and be like, okay, like that's pretty fascinating. And it's pretty, clear, like, okay, this person's energy is doing this and that person is responding in this way. And holy wow, that's really fascinating. So seeing it from this kind of perspective is super cool. Right. And as a projector, it's very natural for me to want to take a step out of the big group and take on that observing piece, because projector energy is so much better one-on-one. right? Because of that penetrating aura. So the aura for a projector, 20% ish of the population,
Yeah.
is very directed. So that aura goes
Right.
right into the G, or the identity center of the other, right? And projectors are able to really notice what's happening in the other, right?
Right.
And some people go, awesome, this is super cool. And other people go, stop it. I don't want you to
Right.
see me.
Right. So
Right?
yes, that
And then
was actually why I
everything
why I wanted to focus on the projector piece tonight, because I mean, we've had past conversations about it, of course, but for example, like we've talked about, society is kind of made for those, those manifestors, those generators, those, as you said, like just, kind of society anyway is conditioned to like just go get them, kind of straight ahead kind of mentality. And as like a projector myself, trying to adapt to that is a struggle, because I know as a projector, I should probably wait to be invited to things, but it's like, okay, if I did that, I would never go anywhere or do anything because
Yeah. And this is probably a really good kind of thing to talk about, because I think that the whole idea of waiting for the invitation is not completely understood.
Mhm.
There is a component to that for sure. But I explained this actually in one of so I'm in a whole bunch of like projector groups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I remember telling this story, and it was such a, for me, even as I was recounting it, going like, yeah, this is so what it is, right? So, we as projectors are meant to do what lights us up, right? So we're
Right.
constantly working on whatever it is that we're meant to bring forward, waiting for
Mhm.
that invitation with recognition to pull that from us, right?
Right.
And so, we have to first recognize and invite ourselves to something,
Mm.
in the sense that I have to go, okay, yeah, this is something that I want to dive into. This is something I want to explore, right?
Right.
And so then as I open to that, I then sit with that, right? Now I've
Right.
put that out to the universe. Like, this is what I want to explore. And so I'll start to, do my exploration with that. And then
Mhm.
I find I get invited to it by others, right?
Right.
So like, even, going back to school to do my master's for
Mhm.
psychotherapy. I know I wanted to be a psychotherapist. I knew that I wanted to work in that field, and I knew that it
Yeah.
really resonated for me. I mean, it has my whole life. I have a defined
Yeah.
G, so I keep coming back to the
Yeah.
same, right? But then I, was like, okay, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how it's going to unfold. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm going to open to
Right.
this as a new possibility. And then I started having people go, Jen, you should probably go back to school. You would be a great psychotherapist.
Yeah. The
Cool.
universe will kind of give it to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm a single mom. I am working, not making,
Right.
great funds and everything. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Right? But if this is what I'm meant to do, okay, it's going to unfold. And this is the difference between,
Mhm.
that generator energy of, responding to everything with that gut yes or no, because
Right.
that's not my thing. It's that
Mhm.
I'm a splenic authority. So in the moment, I know if something is correct or not, but then it's like, okay, but how? Right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I got to go back to school. Okay. I don't know what that's going to look like. So I'm open to it. I would
Right.
love to go back to school and move forward with this. So cool. Let's see what happens.
Right. And
And then I had,
that's one thing. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll add after.
okay. Well, then I had somebody say, hey, this program would be awesome for you. It's online. It's at your own pace. You can do
Mm.
it this
Okay.
way. Look into it and see. It might be great. Cool. Right? And so like
Mhm.
each step of the way, there
Right.
was this kind of, hey, like, check this out. Do you think this might be something that you would like to do? And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is fantastic, right? And I think that we as projectors go, well, if I just sit back and do nothing, I'm never going to do anything. But it's not about that. It's about opening to it in our own energy and recognizing
Mm.
that it's something that we want to
Right.
experience, right? And then making space for that and then seeing
Mm-hmm.
how it shows up.
I think I was gonna say that'll be the next thing on my to-do list. What do I want? But what I was gonna
Mhm.
add was, like one of the big things I learned, because my two centers are my throat and I guess they call it the G, right? Like your heart
Mhm.
chakra.
Yeah, it's the
That
G.
I to process things need to, like, even if I've made up my mind already, I need to voice it to somebody and have it come back to me. So like a lot of the time it's like I don't want feedback necessarily. I just need you to repeat back what I just said to you to make sure that I'm getting it. So thankfully I have friends and stuff that now understand that, but
Mhm.
it's gotten to me into some trouble too, because there's other people, of course, that's not the way that they think, and so they don't, they don't get it. They
Yeah.
think, I'm trying to argue with them, and it's like, no, I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
Yeah. And it's such a beautiful thing when you understand what's happening for you in that moment, because knowing that you have to voice it and you need a sounding board, but you
Hmm.
don't need to take what anybody else says. You just have to hear it and feel, is this correct for me or not?
Yeah.
Right? As you're saying it. Right?
Hmm.
That's such an amazing thing, because now it's like, okay, I do voice it and I do want other people to be there for
Right.
it, but it's got nothing to do with the other person. Not really.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh, and if anybody in the chat has questions about projectors in particular, or basic kind of human design stuff, we can definitely try and answer some questions.
Yeah. And I see here too, so we've got Rossi saying, like, I'm a
Yeah.
generator, an emotional generator.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, again, like we talk about, okay, emotional is the authority, right? And then
Right.
generator is the aura type. And it, going back, so you were talking about, the way that the world is, right? And I
Right.
love this. Kim Ra talks about this and about how, about 10% of the population are manifestors,
Hmm.
right? And about 20% are projectors. So there's 70 more there, right? So
Right.
less than 1% of that is reflectors,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And all of the rest are generators. Now, the world is made in such a way that we are told as a population, just do it, go for it,
Yep.
manifest your dreams, make it
Hmm.
happen. Okay, 10% of the world's population is made for that.
Yeah.
10%. That's it, right? Manifestors are
No,
told, stop, slow down, don't go for it. What are you doing?
no, we wonder why we get frustrated.
So, yeah, exactly. The 10% that are meant to go, just giver, are told, no, 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 no.
Yep.
You need to take a step back, right? The rest of the world are told, go, 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 go.
Trying to catch up with them, why they're telling them to slow down.
Right? And then as
Yeah.
projectors, we're told, like, just give her. Just,
Right.
come on, just do it, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, we don't have access to the same amount of energy
Gosh, no.
that
Yeah.
that generators do.
Yeah.
And so this can become a point of contention sometimes,
Hmm.
right? Like, one of the things that Ra talked about was that projectors, it would be hard for projectors to be parents.
Right.
And it's not because we would make bad parents. We're meant to be guides. We'd make awesome parents in that sense.
Hmm.
If we're guiding our children based on their stuff, not based on our stuff, but at the same time, that consistent source of energy to chase after them, to do things and all of that, that's not there.
Right.
right? And so the reason for that was not like, you guys would be crappy parents. It's just that we have to recognize how we use our energy, right? And I say that, but then I mean that for everybody too, because even the 70% of the world that has access to the sacral energy that is,
Right.
unlimited, if you're not honoring your authority and the decisions that you're making, you're draining that battery constantly. Right? As opposed to energizing it. So
and is that where that, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, is that where that self and not self themes, like those, come in?
Yeah. So what's interesting, so when we talk about the self and not self themes and what what Kaylee's mentioning here, so when we go into the different types, you'll see on the pages, like we have some of the strategies, they're the signposts here.
Again here. There we
right?
go.
The signposts, right? And so then there's this not self. And what ends up happening is when we're in when we're in our not self, when we're in that part of us that's not honoring our design, however that looks, right? And there's so many things that we haven't even touched on in the design. But when we're not honoring it, there's certain signposts that show up in our experience that go, warning, warning, you're not honoring it. And so for projectors, that's bitterness, right? If we're feeling bitter about something, it's because we're not honoring our design. Maybe we're pushing for things, or maybe we're not sitting in that place of waiting, right? So really paying attention to what's coming up for us and going, okay, why am I feeling this right now? Right? What am I doing that's bringing this into my experience? Right. And that can be really hard too, because then we have to go, oh, I'm pushing for this, or I'm trying to make this happen, or I'm doing this. So for generators, because we've got some generators here in the audience, right? That not self shadow is frustration, right? If you're constantly feeling frustrated, take a look at what you're doing with your energy, right? Are you using your energy wisely? Or are you putting your energy into a whole bunch of stuff that is just, you have resistance for it and it doesn't feel correct for you, right? Notice that, because if you're constantly in that place of frustration as opposed to satisfaction, it's because that energy isn't being used properly, right? And so for a projector, it's that same thing. It's that bitterness versus success, right? Like if we're in a place where we're like, yeah, okay, this is moving. This is right. We're in the flow, right? Now, as a projector, that's feeling success, right? Whereas for the generator, it's that satisfaction, right? So just kind of noticing the way that these energies show up. I see we've got some comments. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah. So Hypnosis says, I love what I learned from this community. I know, isn't it awesome? Community is so great. And then Hypnosis was just saying a revelation about the making her dad cry at 3 years old was huge for her this weekend. Yeah, and it changes how you look at things, or look at context. So where you're talking about, like with projectors feeling that bitterness, it's for me, this past week especially has been really rough. And it's like, okay, maybe I need to step back and like reassess, because I am starting to feel a little bit of that like bitterness. And I'm like, okay, this is a warning, that like, hey, you need to look at something's not right. It's so great. I was just trying to think of what other things we could cover.
Well, let's go. Yeah, if you guys have questions, but going back to this piece about like the signposts and things like that, and even with hypnicity and this kind of revelation, I think this is such an important piece, and what we can gain from this deeper understanding is that we begin to recognize the filters that we see things through, right? And that those filters are not necessarily accurate.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And the moment that we have the ability to release some of that conditioning, we're able to go, oh, so I don't have to carry this. I
Yes.
don't have
Yeah,
to
and that's
actually
been a
sit in
huge
this.
thing. Yeah. Yeah, as you said again, like it's there you learn not to blame like the self necessarily. Like it sometimes it just is, you know.
Yeah.
It's what makes us unique.
Yeah.
So
Um,
Moira, I think, has a question here. How do
how
we
do we do?
determine if we are a generator, reflector, etc.?
Yeah.
So,
So
no, go ahead.
it's that slight delay, and it's just like, oh,
Mhm.
yeah. So you can, if you go to my website, there's a link on there to get a free mini guide if you want to, but that'll take a couple days. If you want to know right now, right here and now, there's a couple sites that you can go to. So you can
Mhm.
go through the link on there to Genetic Matrix. You can just go to geneticmatrix.com. Mybodygraph.com will do it. Those are the two that I tend to use the most. But there's a whole bunch of other ones too. Genetic Matrix is great. You can get your basic body graph off of that, and you'll know your aura type. You'll know your
I
the
think I
Mac
spelled
like
that right.
you'll know your authority. You're going to get to find out what your profile is. So that's where we were talking about the 1-3. You'll get to know
Mhm.
your definition. Definition is so huge in human design
Right.
and how we interact with each other, if we're a single, split, triple,
Mhm.
quadruple.
Yeah, and I didn't even know there was that many different types when I got your workbook. I'm like, oh my God, like it wasn't even something that had even crossed my mind.
Yeah, well, and then when we dive into, kind of looking at like the shadow aspects and stuff like that, and how
Mhm.
we constantly, like that single one is going to look at one thing, whereas the split is going to look at something else. And so it's really neat to
Right.
kind of understand, there's so much here.
Yeah. I
um,
say, I think.
but
Oh, keep going. Yeah, I'm just gonna look up something here. There.
yeah,
There. This is
yeah.
this
So
is
that's what
all
we're talking
the
about now.
definition. Yeah. Gotta show
Mhm.
off the book.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Um, Yeah. And so being able to, know kind of what these different things mean for us, like, okay,
Mhm.
3-5 generator, like, okay, what does that even mean? Right, Rossi? So you're
Right.
looking at the three. So you and I both have the three as well, because we're 1-3s.
Yes.
You said you are
Right.
too. Right? So that 3 energy is about how we show up in the world and how
Right.
we, experience the world, and so the 3 is very much that experiential experimenting energy, right? Like, we gotta bump up
Mm.
against things, and 3s
No.
make and break bonds, right? And so
Right.
3 energy is that type that we have to actually try something in order to know if it's
Mm.
true for us or not, right? It's a very
Right.
experimenting energy. The example that I loved that I read forever ago for this energy is, you know, we'll be at a campfire and
Right.
somebody will say, "Yeah, it's really hot over there. Don't go over there." And, the one will be like, "Okay, let me research what fire does," right? I need to
Yeah.
figure it out and think about
Yeah.
all the different things that the fire can do, right? And the two's like, "Cool, I'm just gonna, just sit, hang out." And then the three's gonna be like, "No way, I gotta go put my hand in that fire, and I'm gonna go, holy crap, that burnt me. Everybody listen, the fire is gonna burn you. Don't touch the fire." But the three had to
Yeah.
experience it first.
Yeah. But I think what's great is because, as you said, it's that 1-3 is we do that experiment and then we teach others to not do what we just did.
Yeah. The one does the deep diving, right? And then
Yeah.
the three has to experiment with it. And
Right.
so there's this kind of, push and pull with that 1-3 energy,
Right.
right? That 5 energy is a very projected energy. It's a leadership energy. And that
Yeah.
3 has to be really careful balancing that 5 energy, making sure that they're really clear about what they
Mhm.
promise and what they say they're going to do. Like, there's there, and I can't say this enough, like there's so much intricacy here that an hour will never do justice.
No, gosh, no. You're going on about. What? Like part 10 or something like that on with Gerald on Tarot Stash.
Yeah, and we've still just only scratched the surface. Like we're not even through authorities. Yeah.
So Randy was just asking, oopsie, wrong one, where is it here? They're asking how do you know? I put in if you scroll up in the comments, I put a website in that you can get your chart. You put in your birth date and location and all of that, and it will let you know. And then Moira was just asking, what is the origin of the system?
Yeah, so this is super cool. Sorry if you guys hear the squeaky in the background. The dogs decided that they've got some things to say about what we're doing today.
Morse code.
They're contributors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're cute, by the way.
Yeah, they're just not coming in because they'll be in and out, and I'll be up and down the whole time. Okay, so 1987, I believe, a guy named Robert was on an island. It was Ibiza in Spain, and he tells a story about the voice. And the voice came to him and basically downloaded all of this information that it took him years to process and to bring forward. And it was the science of differentiation, right? And what that meant in terms of, who we are in these experiences being here on Earth, right? And so, the mechanics of it, as he talks about, is really understanding. So there's two components to the body graph, and that's actually, let me go to that.
I just want to put up Rosty's comment. I know, right? I'm like, I just want to go to Ibiza and you'll get a couple downloads.
Right? I know. Me too. I think we should all just go there and hang out and have some fun until some more stuff comes in. Okay, so in the body graph, and this is my body graph, by the way, so you'll get to see mine.
Good to know. Insider information.
Insider information. You've heard it here, and I'm probably only going to say it here. So what we've got going on here is this is where everything was. Now, this is tropical astrology. You can get it in sidereal and all of that if you want to. Purists do the tropical. There's a whole lot of back and forth about what that is. I've run my chart in both, and the tropical resonates for me. So that's what I use. But, your journey. Do you. So what it is so we've got here in the black line here, this is at the moment you were born. So this is where all of the gates, all of the transits were. So you'll see the sun and the earth are here on the top of each one. These make up your incarnation cross, which is kind of your purpose. Right? But it's not like it's your purpose and you have to go seek it out and make it happen. It's like when you're living in alignment with your design, your purpose just automatically unfolds.
Right.
Okay. So there's an interesting kind of piece to that. So, but anyway, this is at the time of your birth. And on the red side over here, this is 88 days prior to, or 88 degrees is kind of what it is. So about 88 days. Prior to. And so what this is this is our personality side, or our conscious side. These are the parts of us that, as we go through it, we can go, yeah, that resonates. That's me. Right? This side is our unconscious side, or our design side. And so what this is, when people say something about it, it's like, yeah, people tell me that a lot. I'm not sure I see it, but I guess so. Right? Because it's on that, it's not consciously what we're aware of. And what's really neat is, like, we talk about, what our design is. So I can look at mine here and go, okay, like I've got, quite a bit of definition, but I also have quite a bit of open, or undefined charts here, or centers here, right? So like just as a piece of info. So my sacral is
Right.
open. It means that there's nothing activated in it. Not a single
Right.
gate is activated. Where undefined are these other ones, right? And they're
Right.
undefined.
Okay, got you.
Have activated gates in them. So when you look at this, I can look at it and I can go, okay, in these areas that are defined, I have a consistent way that I access the energy around those
Right.
areas. Right? For example, my G center, which is about identity, love, and direction. I can go off and do all kinds of things, but I kind of always come back to me. Right? I wanted to work in this profession since I was a kid. Right? I've always this is just who I am kind of a thing. Whereas somebody who is open in their G is going to be able to try all kinds of things, and they don't necessarily circle back, and that's totally fine for them. Right? But what ends up happening is, somebody who is undefined in the G might say, well, I want to know who I am. Right? And then they try to fit who they are with whoever they're with, and then make that who they are. But that's not how it works, because that's never going to be who they are. Right? And so being able to be, open and changing and flowing with the different environments is going to be a really powerful asset. Right? And then in doing so, they're going to be really clear about, who they're with, and if that person is good or not, if they're not in that wounding place. Right? And so these are the pieces that we look at, right? Open and undefined centers tend to amplify those energies. So I know that I get a ton of pressure that I take from the outside, that I take on to do things and to get things done. And I have to be really, really mindful that that's not my pressure. With an open root center, I don't have that internal pressure. I have to get a ton of things done. So if I'm feeling that, I know that it's like, okay, like I'm tapping into this and this isn't mine. Right. And so can I take a step back and go, cool. What do I actually want to do in this moment? What do I really feel led to work on or to evolve with? And then I can figure it out. And I also know that what's defined for me is going to be my filter. Right. So the pressure that I feel is going to be through that defined, gate. And so I can recognize, like, okay, I have a lot of pressure in this particular area. And that's what's showing up for me. I can also recognize that other gate, my 19 here, right? Because my gate on the other side of that channel is defined, that's going to be a huge sticking point for me, right? I'm going to constantly be feeling like that is something that I need to bring into my experience because I'm lacking it. Right. And I need to complete that channel. And so my not self, my shadow self is going to be like, I need this energy. I need this energy.
Wait a minute. It's an itch I need to scratch.
I don't actually. Right. And to be able to be okay with that is a work in progress. Right. And so we recognize like, wow, yeah, okay, this shows up in my experience. Like I have a lot of my circuitry is very individual. A lot of my wiring is very. I'm good. Like I can rock it on my own, but I'm a split definition. So I'm constantly looking for somebody else to complete things, even though I'm like, it's good. I got it. I'm good. Don't worry about it. Right. And then I have that 19, which is, a lot of that energy, and the shadow side deals with codependency. Okay, cool. So here is somebody who really likes to do their own thing, but also really feels like they need somebody else in their experience.
Yeah.
And then recognizing what that kind of paradox inside of me, how that shows up. Right. Now add my 3 energy that makes and breaks bonds. Oh, God bless the people in my life.
I get that. No,
Right?
Us one threes need to stick together.
But again, it's just that piece
Yeah.
where when we're able to look at it from that observer place, right? Like I talk about that
Right.
so much in therapy and stuff, is that if we can take a step back and instead of this is defining who I am, it's like, okay,
Right.
wait a minute. I can observe this quality in my chart and recognize where it comes from, and also recognize that I don't have to own that. Right? It doesn't
Right.
have to
Yes.
actually define me. It's just an aspect of my experience. It's just part of the mechanics. It's
Yeah.
okay. Right? Now,
Everything's gonna be okay.
okay.
So
Mhm.
I thought it would be interesting for people. So this is again in the workbook. So this is the page on projectors. So each type
Yeah.
has a page or pages, I guess. And then you were talking about too, like you have like journaling questions and stuff. So like, you can see here, there's
Mhm.
some journaling questions. But one of the cool things that you have on each of the pages is other famous people that are also projectors or
Oh, yeah.
manifestors or generators. So I thought I'd go over a couple of a couple of the projectors because I found some of them very interesting. So for example, like Nelson Mandela was a projector, Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Queen Elizabeth II. A lot of leaders actually. So like Princess Diana was a projector as well, Barack Obama. And then you have some like creatives too. So you have like Steven Spielberg, like Ringo Starr, part of the Beatles. Katharine Hepburn is an actress. What I found interesting, so Josh Groban, who is like my favorite singer, like from like growing up through like high school and university. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
You have like John Bon Jovi and George Clooney. But yeah, so I just found them like really interesting, like looking at those names and like kind of thinking about who they are as people and being like, okay, yeah, that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah. It's really neat. And it's neat to see too how each type, as they read through those people, have some
Right,
kind of a reaction to it.
right.
Right? Either oh, that's super cool, or a, what? What?
Right.
What? Kind
Well,
of
I think
reaction.
we had a conversation backstage. You're like, oh, I don't know if you know, but like Gerald's also a projector, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense now. Like, you're like even like not having known, but as soon as you said it, I'm like, yep, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's funny how that works. It just
Yeah.
and as you said, our charts, like even if you look at the two of us, you were showing like your chart in the book versus my chart. Like if you just looked at
So
them, you're like, oh, they're not the same at all, or like that's just as you said, how I guess the cookie crumbles. I'll use that metaphor. Oh, there. So
Mhm.
hypnicity she is
Oh,
a
yay, you
generator.
checked. Very cool.
Well, here, since we have a bunch of generators, let me take a quick look here. I'm just gonna flip through it, and maybe we can list off a couple of famous generators for
Ah,
everybody.
cool.
All right. So some famous generators are people like the Dalai Lama, Albert Einstein. So very like I guess great thinkers. Um, you have let's see, Madame Curie. So a great inventor. You have Mozart. So he wrote so many like amazing pieces of music.
Mhm.
You have people like Elvis Presley, Madonna, Walt Disney, Dolly Parton. So yeah, Meryl Streep. There's a good name there. Um, Robin Williams. So
Mhm.
again, very creative go-getters, I guess, is like when I'm
Yeah.
reading these. Like you have like Ellen DeGeneres and Oprah Winfrey as well. Very creative, but very like, as you said, kind
Mhm.
of go get them
Yeah.
kind of types.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, hypnicity, you're in good company for
Yes,
sure.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the thing it's really interesting, right? Because the generator energy, when we talk about strategy, right? Like we were talking about the projector strategy, about
Yeah.
waiting for the invitation with
Right.
recognition, right? And the generator strategy is to respond. And it's fascinating because like so many generators that I talk to, it's like, well, respond to what? And it's like, respond to anything,
Yeah.
everything, all of it. Right. And so when you have, say, somebody, asks you to go do something, you're going to get, a response within you, right? That's that sacral energy. So some generators will have the solar plexus defined, and then
Right.
that becomes their authority. It's emotional. But
Right.
all generators have their sacral. So whether it
Mm-hmm.
is in the moment, if sacral is your authority as a pure generator, or after you've ridden the emotional wave, if you've got your
Right.
solar plexus defined and have emotional, then there's going to be this very clear or kind of feeling in the body, right? And we
Right.
talk about, this kind of, I say it's a very visceral feeling. Some people, if they have auditory channels, are going to actually hear the or
Right.
in their system, right? Some people are just going to feel it as a deep pull or a deep resistance, right? And it's going to show
Right.
up differently for people, but it's going to be there all the same. And so for a generator, it's, do you want to come on the show tonight? Right?
Right.
Do I want to go listen to Woo Woo Wonderment? Yeah, I do. Okay, I'm in, right? Or no, not tonight. Okay, fine.
Yep.
Right? No, everybody says yeah. But again, there is this kind of piece where in the moment you're really able to kind of check in and see how you respond,
Right.
right? And say, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do with that sacral energy. And what's beautiful is, and this is where we were talking about like the Energizer Bunny energy
Right.
for the generator, is if you're responding and you're honoring that response, you've got the energy to do it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If you're responding, but you're not honoring that response, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
So if you're getting a yes and your mind talks you out of it, whatever you decide to do instead, unless there's a second yes there,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to drain yourself,
Yeah.
right? And if you get a no, and you're like, oh, I really should do this anyway, it's going to be resistance. It's going to be hard.
Right.
It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
be an easy process, right? And so, when we look at that, I think it's an important piece, and it's the same like projectors. We talk about, okay, we don't have a sacral defined.
Right.
We have a sacral. We don't have it defined. There are going to be
Yeah.
times where different transits, different people that we're around, things like that are going to activate that sacral in us. And we have to be really careful that we don't overdo it in those
Mm-hmm.
moments, right?
Right.
But we still have energy and we can still do things. We just have to
Mm-hmm.
be mindful about how we do it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I work in spurts, right? And I talk about
Right.
that.
Yeah.
It's like I might have a moment where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this thing and I've got a ton of energy and then I'm
Yep.
done. And that's it.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Yeah.
doing anything for the next little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's okay. But how we use our energy and how we manage it, that's what's important.
Mm-hmm. So Misty was saying, she says, my icon is my soul portrait by Linda Fabry. I'm supposed to be gather co-creators. It definitely sounds,
Ooh, that is awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, and so as a
Um,
generator, when somebody says, "So, do you feel
wanna-
aligned with that? Does it excite you to
right.
be, the gatherer of co-creators?" If that question elicits a
Mhm.
you know that you're in
Go do it.
alignment.
You got it.
Mhm. Yeah, and
So we're just,
music.
yeah. I was just gonna say I saw her comment, yeah, but I love music. And I think that's kind of almost inherent for all, well, and
Mhm.
data apparently too. But yeah, I love music.
Yeah. So, and this is another piece, right? Like music comes on and it you either love it or you don't, right? And
Mhm.
it's like, okay, this is my jam.
And then Moira just had a quick question there about like transits. Do you mean planetary transits like in astrology or something else?
Yeah. So going back to this one,
Yeah.
right? So
Here, I'll
what
make it bigger.
happens is the sun moves counterclockwise through the gates, right? So we hit each of the 64 gates, the sun goes through each of the
Right.
64 gates. They say 6, it's like 5 and a little over 5.5 days that it's in each one, but we go through each of them. And so each gate also has a line. And so through those, like, that's why I say 6, because it's just easier in my brain for
Yep.
math. Lines. So
Yeah.
each, right, each almost day, we go through each of the lines of each of the gates. And
Okay.
so we spend different points in it. So like if we look at the calendar, we might say, okay, this is a line 2 day, or this is a line 3 day. It's
Right.
about which line in that transit we're in. And each of those lines also has its own energy, right? So, I share on Twillo every Monday kind of what transit we're in
Right. Yes.
during
Yeah.
that time. I don't often share about the lines only because it changes every day.
Yes. Yeah.
But there is a component there of paying attention to
Mhm.
where we're at and the impact that has on your chart, right? Like
Right.
if we're in a transit and that transit is a gate that you have, you might just feel that energy stronger and you might not feel
Mhm.
anything. If that chart, if that transit that we're in actually completes a channel for you, now all of a sudden you have access to that
Right.
energy, right? Like let's say you have a melancholy gate, right? And you're like, oh, you hit a day and that transit completes something and you go, oh, I got all this energy, I can do this thing and I want to da 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 da. And then the transit's gone again. You're like, right? If we can
Yeah.
recognize that this is the energy that we have, then all of a sudden it's not like, what's wrong with me? It's like, oh,
Right.
I'm just being activated by these different transits. And so when they show
Mhm.
up, I have this experience. And when they're
Right.
not there, I don't. Right? A channel there might be a day, and I've seen this happen where a channel gets activated for my sacral.
Right.
I'm running like a wild person that day. Like, what? I'm just not stopping. What is going
Right.
on? Right? And it's like, okay, I'm getting this done and this done, this done. And it's not until after that I look at it and go, holy crap,
Right.
what happened? It's like, oh,
Oh, that's
this
why.
is bad. Okay, this is what's happening for me. Right? So
I'm just gonna put up hypnosis conversation. That's why I'm here. Not sure how I'll manifest it, but just putting the energy out there. But I don't know if was hypnosis here. I can't remember when you were talking about like with your job, like what you do for your work. Like you weren't sure how you were going to do it either. But when you kind of just opened up yourself up to it, the universe provided.
mhm. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and
just put it out there, hypnosis.
it's really cool, right? Because there's so many things that play into this. Like we can't just
Right.
take one aspect and say, okay, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because everything is transiting and everything is doing its thing and it's all impacting in different ways. And so, like Rossi's saying about like Saturday and that
Yes.
energy,
That was
you
Saturday
know,
was weird.
yeah. But think about, okay, we're just coming through full moon energy, which is
Mm-hmm.
always going to be doing, something. And
Yeah.
we're looking at, okay, there's different transits, there's the solar flares, there's your own
Wasn't there a
biorhythm.
bunch of planets that were in alignment or two or something like that that happened? I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember.
So like
Yeah.
there are going to be times where something might knock one person out and completely energize another.
Right. And that's happened too. But that's what's great about I
Right?
think community is that you can have like half the people being like, oh this, and then the other half are like, oh this, but they're both completely valid,
Mhm.
responses to what's going on.
Yeah. Well, and that's the piece, right? Is like we might get an energy that completes something in our chart, let's say, and there's, our own kind of the shadow aspect around it might make that really hard, right, to process.
Right.
And so we have to notice, like, oh, okay, I'm acting on this energy now that I've felt like I've needed for all this time. And then all of
Right.
the sudden it shifts and we go, oh, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
Right. And so just being able to be kind and compassionate with ourselves, and on
Right.
days where the energy is knocking us off our feet, to be able to go, cool, I'm putting my feet up today. It's okay.
And I think this is actually a perfect time. So we're past our hour, which is
My
great. So
goodness.
thank you everybody for sticking around. But one of the other great things you have, so again, on these pages for the different types, you have some affirmations. So I thought I would read the ones out for the projectors, and we can kind of, I'll read them out, and then I'll kind of, I guess, summarize everything for the night, and we can let
Cool.
people get to bed. So affirmations. So my insights are valuable, and I do not just give them away.
That's about wise use of our energy.
Mm-hmm. My value does not come from doing. That is a big one for me.
Mm-hmm.
It is okay for me to be patient and take my time. That's a big important one, where, as you said, they're just pushing you to go, 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 and just do it all the time. But we need that time to think as projectors. I have faith that I will have what I need in the moment it is needed. I think that's important for everybody, but yeah, especially.
It is. Well, and with projectors, right? That part of us that doesn't believe the invitation will come.
Right.
Right? Like, it is such an important piece, because again, we have to open to it.
Right.
Right? So if we don't think it's going to come, we're not going to notice it when it does.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so being able to take that step back and trust is huge.
Yeah. Well, and actually, the next one says, I trust myself to know when an invitation is correct for me.
Yes. Which is the other thing, because not all invitations are.
Right.
And so this is where that projector energy that needs to wait for the invitation, but then we have to go through our authority to go, is this actually an alignment for me?
Right.
Is this an invitation that I want to accept?
And then the next one is, I am a powerful seer, needed, recognized, and invited to guide. That's a good one. And then the most important, because I'm assuming it's most important because you have it underlined.
It's important because it's every single one.
There you go.
Right. Every single one of them has this one.
straight from the author. So it says, I am a once in a lifetime unique being, created exactly as I am meant to be. Mm-hmm. So everybody take that home tonight and like write it on your bathroom mirror with the dry erase marker. Just have it on your mirror so you see it in the morning. Mm-hmm. So Jen, as I said, we passed the hour, but do you have anything coming up this week or next week?
Yeah, next Monday at 2:00 Eastern time, I'm on with Gerald, and we're going to do the next set of authorities, which is your authority.
Finally, I've been waiting.
We've been working through the authorities, and so they have a hierarchy, and I won't get into it too much, but as we kind of go through, right, like we've done each one as they go through. So next is going to be yours.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I know there's a page in here somewhere that goes through them all, but
yeah,
what you're gonna do is you're just gonna need to get the coloring book for yourself. And as I said, so it's down in the description below, the link straight to the Am of Zon, as Gerald, I think.
Am of Zon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we need Gerald's little card, like, purchase responsibly, know your limits.
Yeah, purchase responsibly. Yeah, you got it, exactly. And then as far as for me, for our next live, that'll be in 2 weeks, so on June 10th, and that'll actually be with Tanis from Twilla Lifestyle. We don't have a topic yet, but that'll be coming in the next week or so. So if nothing else, it'll be a good time and we'll have some laughs. So yes, I hope you can tune in. Oh, and Hypnosy says, great show. I'm getting my coloring book tomorrow.
Awesome. Yeah. And then Twillo Talk every Monday, live at 5. If you guys want,
I'm
like, and
always there.
subscribe, and you'll be able to show up for those. And they're just authentic spiritual conversation. We wing it, we pull a card, we have fun.
Yes, always, yes. Well, I hope everybody has a good night, and thank you so much for tuning in again. And for anybody watching on the replay, thanks for tuning in as well. And if you can please like, comment, and subscribe, and feel free to share. And we'll see you next time.